In 2008, a man started knocking on doors in North Lawndale, a neighborhood on the west side of Chicago. He was friendly, well-dressed, and he had an offer that was hard to say no to. Nobody who opened their door that day had any reason to be suspicious. He was just a man with a business card and a good pitch. Most of the people involved in this story would later spend the rest of their lives trying to undo the moment they let him in their house. His name was Mark Diamond, and what he did to over 100 families in that neighborhood is one of the most calculated and cold-blooded cons ever prosecuted in the city of Chicago. Not because of how violent it was, but because of how patient it was. He was not after their money. He was after something that took decades to build and that most of them would never get back. By the end of this video, you will never look at a mortgage document the same way again, and you will understand exactly how one man used a single signature to do something that took an entire neighborhood decades to recover from. From the moment Lily Williams and her sister Ethel bought the two-story gray-stone house on South Drake Avenue, it became the center of family life. They had moved to Chicago from Mississippi, bought the house in 1973 for $11,000, and never left. For years, her family gathered there. On holidays, Lily cooked turkey and dressing, baked ham, and pies, and her son Walter described the house simply. "It's all we've got. This is the centerpiece of our entire family." In 2009, a woman named Cynthia knocked on Lily's door. She was going door to door in the neighborhood telling residents about a program that could help pay for home repairs. She was friendly, easy to talk to, and what she was offering sounded legit. A few days later, a man named Mark Diamond came by. He told Lily he could repair her bathrooms and kitchen, fix the front porch, and tuck point the front of the building. He told her a program existed that would cover the costs through the equity in her home and that she would not have to pay anything out of pocket. Williams was skeptical at first, but Diamond insisted. He came back a second time and then a third time. On the third visit, she agreed. Cynthia drove Lily to Diamond's office where she signed a stack of documents. Diamond did not explain what she was signing. He did not walk her through the terms as required by law, and he did not give her copies of the paperwork to take home. Lily signed where she was told to sign and went home. After that, the repairs took place. Not all of them, and not all of them done well, but enough that Lily had no immediate reason to question anything. Later, she never received the bill. Diamond had told her that she would not pay anything, and as far as she could tell, that was exactly what happened. Years passed, and life in the house on South Drake Avenue continued the way it always had. Then, letters started arriving. Bills for insurance payments on a mortgage she did not remember taking out. Fees she could not explain and could not afford. Lily had no idea what any of it meant. When her family started digging into what she had actually signed that day in Diamond's office, they found out for the first time that the house she and her sister had spent decades paying off was now carrying a loan worth over $120,000. A loan Diamond had taken the proceeds from, and a loan that under its own terms could cost them the house if the insurance payments were not kept current. Lily did not know who to call or what any of it meant. He told her nephew, Reverend Robin Hood, what was happening. Hood had grown up in North Lawndale and had spent years as a community organizer. When his aunt told him what was happening to her home, he did not treat it as an isolated case. He started asking around the neighborhood and found the same name attached to the same story on street after street. The events were always as follows. Elderly woman, home repair offers. A woman named Cynthia knocking on doors first. Diamond showing up days later. Documents signed at his office. Repairs done poorly or not at all. And then, years later, a financial problem nobody could explain. Lily's nephew contacted journalists. He also contacted lawyers who agreed to represent Diamond's victims for free. He organized protests outside Diamond's home, and he brought residents to court hearings and to the local Department of Housing and Urban Development office and demanded action. In January 2015, the Chicago Reporter published the first major investigation report on Diamond's scheme. 2 months later, the FBI raided his office. That same year, the Illinois governor signed a new law requiring government counseling and a mandatory 3-day waiting period before any reverse mortgage could be completed, a direct response to what Diamond had been doing. Why is this law relevant for the case? Well, because what Lily had signed that day in Diamond's office was a reverse mortgage. And to understand how Diamond used it as a weapon, you first need to understand what this actually means. A reverse mortgage is a loan that is available to homeowners who are 62 or older. The way it works is that instead of the homeowner making monthly payments to a bank, the bank pays out a lump sum or monthly payments drawn against the equity the homeowner has built up in their property over the years. The homeowner keeps living in the house and does not have to repay anything while they're alive and living there. The loan only becomes due when they die, sell the home, or permanently move out. At that point, the house is typically sold to cover what is owed. For an elderly person who owns their home outright and needs access to cash, it can be a reasonable financial tool. Problem is that the loan does not disappear when the homeowner dies. It transfers with the property. If the family wants to keep the house, they have to pay off the full balance. And critically, if the homeowner never actually received the money because somebody else took it, the family is still legally responsible for every dollar of that debt. Diamond understood this better than anyone. He was not stealing cash that could be traced and recovered. He was attaching a legal debt to the most valuable thing these families owned, a debt that would sit there silently for years and surface at the worst possible moment, usually after a funeral. In September 2017, Diamond was finally brought before a federal judge. The count of victims at that point stood at 122. The total amount of stolen home equity was $10 million. Judge Jeffrey Cole denied him bond and called his crimes horrible, odious, and villainous. Diamond was 60 years old. He was not convicted. The case moved slowly through the courts. Prosecutors alleged that even while he was awaiting trial, Diamond continued defrauding seniors on the West Side. He was rearrested in 2023. He finally pleaded guilty the following year to 1 count of wire fraud affecting a financial institution. Lily Williams did not live to see any of it. The stress of nearly losing her house consumed her in her final years. She stopped going out, she stopped eating the way she used to, her family watched her withdraw, and believes the fear of losing her home contributed directly to her death. She died in July 2016, while Diamond was still a free man. Her daughter Gloria was outside the courthouse in January 2025 when Diamond was finally sentenced. She told reporters she was physically sick just from seeing his face. On January 16, 2025, Mark Diamond stood before the U.S. District Judge and was sentenced to 205 months in federal prison, just over 17 years. The court ordered Diamond to pay $2.7 million in restitution, but he had spent the money years ago. As of early 2026, some families were still fighting in court to hold onto the homes that had been in their families for decades, still dealing with the debt attached to those homes without their knowledge, still waiting for something a prison sentence alone cannot give them back. Lily Williams' family home on South Drake Avenue is still standing. Her nephew David still lives there. The house still needs work that was never done. He stood inside it last winter wearing a coat, talking about what his aunt had asked him before she died. She told him to keep the house, and he is still trying to honor that promise.